Hi everyone, how are you doing? So today I want to talk about the push-pull of our energy, and what do I mean by this? So for a lot of us as introverts, as highly sensitives, you will either go into one of these polarity states, which is to either push through something or hide from it. And I've experienced this on my own journey as well. When we start to become aware of ourselves as sensitive beings, when we start to become aware of our beautiful energy and how precious it really is, we can really first start to see this pendulum swing of, well, I always used to be able to do this thing. Not seeing that this thing actually caused you physical illness because it was affecting your energy, but it just took so long for you to see that the energy was affecting you, that it came out in a physical illness. So this was me. I would have tonsillitis several times a year. I had IBS. I had all sorts of issues going on with my body. And that's because I wasn't sensing that certain things were pushing me into overwhelm, overdrive, and burnout. So it came out in physical illness. Then when we start to have an awareness of the energy and we start to tune into how certain things make us feel, because we're so used to doing these things. So for me, this comes into, so one of the examples of this for me was working in London. It was like, well, I've been able to work in London before. I've been able to spend time in London before. So I should be able to do it. Not everyone else can do it. Everyone else can work in London. And so sometimes what would happen is I would go into push through. So we go into push through mode. We start to compare ourselves to everyone else. We start to feel, and this I'm seeing massively in the collective at the moment, we start to feel less than. We start to feel not worthy because we can't do the thing, because we don't feel like energetically we can go to the party, go to the hen do, whatever that thing might be. We don't feel like energetically we can do it. And we start to create this belief that you're not worthy. We're not worthy, therefore we have to push through and do it because everyone else can do it. Remember, as highly sensitives, we are 20% of the population. So 80% of the population is going to be able to potentially do that thing absolutely fine. And it might, they might be more extroverted, they might be less sensitive, and it might energize them. So we go into push through mode when we start to compare ourselves to everyone else. We start to compare ourselves and judge. Judgment is a big one as well. We start to judge our old stories of, well, I always used to be able to do this thing, like that is part of my life. Or the ego can come in. So we can do this we can go into this pendulum swing with ego and worthiness as well and be like, no, I deserve this thing. I did this with a gig the other day. I deserve to go to this gig. I deserve a night out. And just ignoring everything that it was telling me about the energy of going to that place and that energy of even not drinking myself, that energy of being around alcohol and being around that trauma that was being suppressed through that alcohol on such a big level as well. So we either go into ego and say, I deserve this thing, I deserve to do it, or we go into worthiness and kind of go, oh, maybe I'm not worthy because I don't feel like I can do this thing, so I'm going to push through anyway. I'm going to punish myself and I'm going to make myself go anyway. And this may be something we don't want to go to, or it may be something that we do actually want to go to, and it has brought us joy in the past. And sometimes we don't always know until we listen to our body and we which I'm going to come on to, like how we can balance this and how we can listen to our body. So we go into that push through mode, which has that pendulum swing of I'm not worthy to I deserve this. Or we go into the opposite, so the pull. So the push is I'm going to push through, I'm going to do this thing, no matter, what happens. Or we go into pull, and we can sometimes go into pull after the event as well. And in this pull mode, this can happen before the event. So we can be like, right, okay, I'm worried that this thing is going to drain my energy. I'm worried about being out in public again. So I'm going to pull back. And sometimes that can come out as like, certainly in the early days, like as we start to test speaking our truth, that may come out as an excuse. And we pull back and we might say, I'm not going to do that thing. I know I can't do that thing. And that may come from a genuine place of like inner knowing in your body, like this is not the right thing for me to be doing. I've got a lot on this week, I've got a lot on with work, and I actually feel that it's going to nourish me more not to do this. Or it can come from like that place of fear and that place of anxiety of like, oh my gosh, not another thing I've got on. I remember Coral had a gig, it was last autumn, and I had a really busy week. I was running a 3-day retreat, and I really wanted to go to that gig and support her. And I can remember that anxiety coming in of like, oh my gosh, I've got so many like out things this week where I'm, you know, holding that space in a retreat, bringing that community together. But I really want to go and support her in that gig. And it was like, oh, I just feel like I felt the anxiety come in and I didn't want to do it because I just felt sort of overwhelmed. So sometimes this can come from that place of inner knowing. Sometimes it can come from that place of anxiety. And of course, when we end up in the pullback mode, we can also go into victim mode with that as well. So again, worthiness and ego, pendulum swing of why does that have to drain my energy? Why do I have to feel that way? Why me? Why me? Poor little old me who's getting my energy drained by that scenario when everyone else can do it. Poor little old me. So we kind of can go into this victim mode with this as well. And we can sometimes also create this whole thing for ourselves by doing push first. We then end up in pull mode, and I know I've been there as well. So push myself through, push myself to do it. I should be able to do this thing. Push through. Then my body reaches complete overwhelm and complete burnout because I've not listened to the little whispers. It's given me the screams. It's telling me like stop, and I've not listened, so I end up like in complete overwhelm and I shut down, and then I have to spin back because I've gone into such extreme push mode, in complete burnout. I have to go to the other layer and pull back completely and rest because my body's in adrenal fatigue and hypervigilance and overstimulation, and it has to disconnect completely and calm and regulate that nervous system to get back to that middle point. Okay, so we don't want to be push-pulling all the time because we do have the worthiness at play, we have the ego at play, and there's so many things that can create this pendulum swing for us. A lot of it does come down to worthiness, and this is where self-love and self-care are really important. And the more we build this self-love and self-care, the more courageous we become. Self-love is not having bubble baths. Well, it is, that's part of it. But, you know, it's about being really courageous and saying, no, I know that this event is too much for me right now. Like, my body is telling me no, and speaking that truth to those around you. And I think a lot of us stop ourselves from doing that because we're judging, we're comparing to others. Or we push through because, again, that ego unworthiness is at play there as well. So instead of going to these two sides of the coin, which I have seen myself pendulum swing between a lot of my life, a lot of my clients pendulum swing between these two as well, we want to be bringing ourselves to that middle point a lot sooner. So how do we do that? It's simply, and you may be thinking, Gemma, like it's not that simple. It's simply about listening to our bodies, and our bodies know, our higher selves know, and we can get into that middle space. So by tuning in, so yes, there is a little bit of there's a little bit of logic, and there's a little bit of more kind of masculine structures that come in at play. So I will now like pre-plan ahead, and if I know I've got an event, I'll plan around it. I'll block things out in my diary. If someone asks me to do something, I'll say, oh, I can't, I've got some other things on that week, that's a little bit too much for my energy, perhaps we can do that the following week. Obviously, if it's a firm no, it's a firm no, and I've got like much more practice now at speaking that boundary and actually not caring what anyone thinks. Like, it's my life. I had this moment of like, when this level of self-love dropped in, I had this moment of like awareness of like, this is my life and I'll live it how I want to live it. Like, finally, after all these years of trying to live it in a way that everyone else wants me to live it, which of course they didn't, deep down everyone did want me to be happy and to live my best life, but I was taking on all of these beliefs and all of these conditionings and everyone else's opinions. So if we can bring ourselves to that middle ground sooner, all we need to do is to listen to our body. So we can do this through daily meditation practice. So if we're meditating daily, we can tune in with our body daily and say, hey body, what is it that you need today? Like, what are you noticing? Perhaps you're noticing physical tension, and that is your, warning sign that you're or perhaps a tight chest, or you're starting to become overwhelmed. And I talk a lot about energy alignment, and this is what energy alignment is about. It's about just stopping and listening to your body and going, okay, I'm now feeling this. That's what I need to get into alignment. And as a manifesting generator as well, I will sometimes say, right now that thing is a yes for me, but can I let you know nearer the time, and I'll check in with my body. So communicating this need to others as well is super, super important. So daily meditation, tuning in with your body, communicating that need to others around, actually, so I know for me, I respond from my sacral. Is it okay if I just tune in my body and let you know nearer the time? Pre-planning, and this is where masculine structures can really help us. If we know, like, full well how many, and it might vary week to week, and again this comes down to listening to our body, but we might know how many things that week is our maximum, because we, if we look back, we're going to have data of times where we've pushed too far, of times where we pulled back and we could have done it, or perhaps it was something that we wanted to do as well. So we want to be bringing ourselves into that middle space, so that we're not pushing and we're not pulling and we're not completely detaching from the world either. So bringing ourselves back to that middle space, listening to our bodies, having that daily practice of listening to your body, getting into alignment. And also what I want to say on this as well is connecting to yourself. Like, the answers, your higher self knows the answers. You don't need to outsource this information, and a lot of us do this as well. We outsource this to coaches and mentors and family members, and we ask advice from others, and others give very well-meaning advice, but ultimately this decision needs to come from within us. We all have our own unique plans for what we need to align to ourselves, and that needs to come from within. So the more we can disconnect from those outside sources, the more we can build that practice of tuning in with ourselves, the more we can get to that middle point and to that middle ground. So where you can, especially if you've got lots of open centers, where you can, tuning back in with yourself and spending that time within, rather than pushing out and outsourcing and looking for those answers outside of you, because the likelihood is that's going to be what works for someone else but doesn't work for you. And this is the reason I became a coach, right? Because I wanted to empower others to be able to connect within. And this is where proper coaching comes in, because a coach will never tell you their strategy, their how they align, and tell you to do that. A genuine coach will always ask open questions for you to find that yourself and for you to tap in. So yes, I can give you these tips, I can teach you how I've helped myself get into alignment, but ultimately it's about empowering you to find your own way. So I hope this was useful, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Lots of love.